Justifying the Revolution by Jack Philo, Mcgeagh, and John Mouseau. In the midst of geographical, social, and economic division, the desire to determine one's own future culminated in a revolution in the birth of a new nation. As the British Empire enforced its rule over the developing New World, the American colonists sought liberty, not from abstract forms of oppression, but as a response to the tangible prosperity limited only by a crown that they could no longer bear. The colonies, though considered a part of the British Empire, served as the central hub for resources and commerce on the North American continent. However, economic success and the development of major cities like Boston and New York made the 4,000-mile distance to the mainland seem all the more dividing. This division is best put in Thomas Paine's Common Sense. Paine argues that American colonies were like children who had grown into adults and needed a representative democracy in which the people hold the power, not some monarchy thousands of miles away. Detachment from the parliamentary system, as well as a lack of overall representation within the empire, meant that the decisions made in the best interests of the empire were seen as overarching and, at a certain point, tyrannical. The officials that overruled local legislatures in the colonies came directly from England. Thus, all economic policy greatly favored British interests. In addition, even if the colonists were successful in earning spots in the English Parliament, they would be in too small of numbers to actually influence decision-making, therefore negating any constructive compromise. All colonies in the British Empire had to be economically subordinate in order to maintain security and economic vitality within a strictly mercantilist system. In order for the British to keep the colonies subordinate, it became imperative to place trading restrictions on the colonies in order to avoid trade with competitive European powers. One of the ways that the British went about doing this was by taxing the colonies. These taxes, without proper representation, became a central factor in the escalation of the revolutionary movement. An example of these taxes is the Stamp Act, which led to Boston merchants refusing to buy British products and hurting the Britain economic market. Britain eventually repealed the Stamp Act through the Declaratory Act, but said it was by their will this act was repealed, a classic example of the overarching power Britain was abusing. Due to the immense importance of lumber to the British, the lumber-rich American colonies subscribed to the mandates of ship production. Since any trade with competitive nations would gradually empower their navies, all trade was limited to the mandates of the British Empire. Subsequently, all middle-class merchants could effect their own profit margin without committing treason. As an act of retaliation to the sweeping economic policies of the British, the colonists participated in the famous Boston Tea Party. As Jameson mentions, the British placed land restrictions on the colonists in order to control the number of trees that were cut down. This allowed the king himself to have an abundance of white pine trees, which allowed the crown to reinforce its military with more naval ships. Once the colonists earned their independence, they were able to regain control of the vast amount of land that the British crown possessed and redistribute it to colonists. This provided more people with voting rights and allowed people to utilize the large amounts of natural resources that were present for economic gain. Throughout the Revolution, the commonplace, rural, and isolationist ways of life meant that economic policy among the business and merchant class became secondary to timeless desires for opportunity and equality for all men. The sheer immensity of the rural class forced political actions to be made with the intent of controlling the radical population, while at the same time ensuring stability and equal economic opportunity. New suffrage laws were passed that allowed for landowning, property-owning males to have the right to vote. This was an extension from the previous suffrage laws that said only landowning males could vote. All in all, the American Revolution was justified because the British abused their power in spite of a long and distant relationship. The colonies sought economic, social, and political opportunities that could only be accomplished if a revolutionary movement occurred.